And that was Chelsea Nisbett from Halifax, and she's here live in the studio. Why don't you come on in now, Chelsea, and sit down here. Terrific song, Anchored Roots.
Thank you.
You wrote it. I noticed you've written all but 2 of the songs on your album.
Yes.
And this is Anchored Roots is the theme song. What's the essential message you're trying to get across with that song?
Well, the message I try to get across with my music is hope, because a lot of people listen to my music from different walks of life, people who've never stepped foot in a church to people who've grown up in the church. Yeah. And we've all experienced some really difficult times, well, most of us. And with the song Anchored Roots, it was actually inspired by a picture that I was kind of seeing in my head. I was going through kind of a hard time, just with some disappointments and things like that. And I just had this picture in my head of this tree, and it was blowing in the wind, and the storm is going around it. But then underneath the ground, there's this huge hand holding the roots so that the tree doesn't blow away in the storm. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's a picture of hope, that no matter what I'm going through, the storms in life, I know that God's going to hold me, and He's not going to let me blow away.
Not going anywhere.
Yeah, and
right?
That's actually in the CD case.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was looking in your CD case, and I think there's a picture of this tree, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it's underneath
there we go.
this.
Let's take a look right there in the middle of the, see, there's the root system underneath the tree, which is so true.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how those roots just hang on to the soil.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned going through hard times. You've had your share of them.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Tell me about it. Tell me about your early years.
I come from a broken home, so I think a lot of people come from situations where the family goes through hard times, and so my mom and I lived in a shelter for a little while, and I've definitely seen the way God can restore relationships where there's unforgiveness and things like that.
How long did you live in a shelter?
It was for a few months. I was 9 years old, yeah. And it was kind of it was interesting because when we moved there, I almost instantly became a teenager at 9 years old. You kind of just grow up all of a sudden when things happen. So
now, was this because of poverty or because of domestic violence or a combination?
No domestic violence, no. But we just needed a place to go, and that was.
Now, had your mom and dad split?
Yes. And so we went to a shelter for a little while until we could find a place to live.
Did your parents ever reconcile?
Well, they're not together. No, but they, they talk and things like that.
Did you feel abandoned by your dad?
No. I just my dad is a good man. I think sometimes relationships just I don't know, things happen, and I don't know how to explain it.
So do you stay in touch with him, or you see him from time to time?
Absolutely, yeah. He lives in New Brunswick, and he's remarried, and my mom lives in Halifax, and I live in Halifax as well.
So how did you deal with this crisis? You're 9 years of age. I mean, you're old enough to know that this is a great dislocation. How did that impact you personally?
Well, I think what it has caused me to struggle with, I guess, a little bit is just trusting God. That's something that He's always walking me through, is just learning to trust Him. Like, no matter what's going on, there's always hope. I can always trust that He's going to work out the details for things, because sometimes I get into just kind of looking at the situation. There's this constant running of information and asking God, are you sure this is going to work out? How is it going to work out? And God's just like, you know what, it's okay, trust me. Even if it doesn't work out the way you planned for it to work out, I'm bigger. I created the universe, and I created you, and I can take care of things.
Where did you develop this worldview? Were you raised in the church, or was this something that came on later?
I grew up in the church. My mom actually took me to church when I was younger, and then in grade 2 is when I decided that that I wanted to just make Jesus officially a part of my life. And I was in, this is what Moira was mentioning about the queenly insight, is that I was queen of Sunday school for a day. And that day we talked about heaven. And they asked everyone to close their eyes and raise their hand if they don't know whether or not they're going to heaven. And I didn't want to raise my hand and ask questions because I was queen for the day. I'd won a contest, and queens do not raise their hand
right.
to ask questions.
Right.
So, so I was like, you know what, I'm just not going to raise my hand. But then I asked my mom about it later in the car on the way home, and she said that she just explained about what Jesus did for me and how he died on the cross and paid for my sins. And she pulled over to the side of the road and led me to Christ right there. So,
Wow.
yeah.
And so did you continue going to school even while you were in the shelter?
Oh, yeah, yeah. So I would kind of travel. I was in Riverview, and the shelter was in Moncton, so we would just kind of travel back and
When
forth.
did you discover that you had a musical talent?
Oh, I used to put on little concerts for my stuffed animals. That was my debut, actually, in my room.
Your stuffed animals?
Yeah, so they got great shows every day because I would lip sync to my Amy Grant tapes and everything. So that was fun.
And how did you launch out? Did you start singing in church, or how did you begin?
Yeah, I started singing at the church that I go to now. I actually have been going there since I was 11. It's an awesome church. I love it. And yeah, they saw the potential in me to start leading worship and stuff. So when I was 12, they actually started to get me to sing. And I remember the first time I led worship. Oh, it was so nerve-wracking. I dropped my picks, and then the guitar, I turned it off by accident, and I cried after I got off stage because I was so upset. But yeah, certainly I've grown a lot since then. But yeah, just the church has definitely played a huge role in helping me develop my musical skills.
So many musical stars out there in secular music really began in the church, and they were cultivated and developed in the church. When you think about it, I've often noticed this as I'm traveling. You know, I'll be in a hotel somewhere, and there's a lounge, and there's somebody in there singing, and they're singing beautifully, and there might be 3 or 4 people sitting there, you know, having a drink and listening. You sing in a church, you got 400, 500, 600 people, and you know, you got an audience that most entertainers would die for, and you get the kind of feedback and the cultivation and the encouragement. It's a great incubator, really, for musical talent. Now, are you full-time in music now?
Yeah, well, basically that's what I focus on. But when I'm not on the road, sometimes you can be a few weeks off the road, and so then I substitute teach because I love building into people, and it's actually really cool because when I'm substitute teaching, the students will find out, oh, she's a singer. And so they'll go online and they'll be able to hear songs about hope and everything. So it's just really neat that I'm able to kind of have the two of those.
Are you teaching elementary or high school?
You know what? I've been teaching everything from grade 3 to grade 12. I'm trained for grade 7 to grade 12,
Right.
secondary. But yeah, I've also been doing some substitute
Music teaching?
No, actually, I'm a French and math teacher.
French and math teaching? No
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah, it's
No
kind of a
kidding.
weird combo, but
So where'd you go to university?
I went to Dalhousie University for 4 years, got my undergrad in French, and I was originally a physics major, and then I moved to math, then moved to French, so I ended up with a French degree.
Wow.
And then after that, I went to Mount St. Vincent University
Get your
for
Bachelor of
2 years.
Education.
Yes, so 6 years.
Well, it's not often we have musicians here and artists who also have a couple of university degrees and can teach high school. That's remarkable.
Well, thank you.
Your education, has it contributed to your music in any way?
Yeah, well, I find that I actually took some on the technical side, the practical side. I took some courses for music theory at Dalhousie University, and I find just through meeting people and hearing their stories and things, it inspires me to write songs. So I not only write from my own experience and my own, you know, my experience with God, I also write about what I see around me. So.
Now, you and I have something in common. You wouldn't know about this probably, unless you're aware of some of the stuff I do, but we both have a heart for orphans and widows and for the broken. You work with Compassion.
Yes.
And
I
is
do.
it Africa, Haiti, or where's your area of focus?
I actually focus on India.
On India.
Yeah, because I sing about hope, and I thought, oh, I really want to do something about it. I don't want to just sing about it. And so I was praying about it, and I heard about Compassion. And around the same time, I also went to this big conference that we have every year in Halifax. It's called Jesus to the Nations. And it's this big conference that celebrates what people are doing around the world through missions and everything. And I was like, God, what should I focus on? And there was a speaker there from India that year. This was a couple years ago. And he was talking about the Dalit, which is...
the Untouchables.
Yeah, the Untouchables. And it just broke my heart to hear how a lot of them are treated less valuable than cows. And so I thought, wow, that's so heartbreaking. And then around that time, I watched Slumdog Millionaire. And there were scenes in that movie that I wish that were just Hollywood, but I knew just the children that got maimed and blinded just so they could go begging in the streets. I mean, they did that for the movie, but in real life that does happen.
Yes, it
and
does.
so just through that, I decided to focus on India and partner with Compassion. It's an awesome organization.
Yeah, they really are. Have you been to India yet?
Not yet, but I want to go. Yeah.
Well, when you go, be prepared to be shocked. India is quite the place. I mean, it's on one hand, it's getting a reputation of being a kind of a high-tech haven, but the general populace are extremely poor. And I've never met such poverty and such compression of people in my life as in India. But it certainly is an area of great need, and I think it's terrific that you're involved there.
Thank you.
Just a couple minutes before you sing your second song, what do you see for the future, for you and your work and your ministry?
Well, I'm going to be going to Nashville soon and songwriting with some people down there, which is really exciting. And I'm also planning a Western Canada tour, so hopefully that will be in the summer. And it's neat to see the way God is opening doors. So as He's opening doors, I'm just walking through, and He's opening doors for a Western Canadian tour and for songwriting in Nashville and everything. So those are the two things that are going to be on the go very soon.
Well, that's terrific, Chelsea. It's very commendable to see you doing not only the work you're doing, but to see the preparation you've put into it and to see the scope of your ministry. To be thinking about India and the Dalit is very commendable.
Thank you.
And you know what? It's your generation that are really saying, you know what, I want to believe and I want to put my trust in the Lord, but I also want to be the hands and feet of the Lord. I want to be in right relationship with God, but I also want to seek justice for my neighbor. And I think it's profound. Why don't you get on over there to sing song number 2? What's it called?
It's called Possibility.
Possibility.
Yeah.
The main focus is?
You know, it's about trusting God with relationships. A single girl in her 20s, and just trusting God that at the right time He will bring the right person for me.
Awesome. Way you go. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, as Chelsea gets ready to sing, I just want to stress again, friends, first of all, here's her CD. It's called, oh, I got it backwards here. There it is. Anchored Roots. Oh, there it is. Anchored Roots. It's her music. All of the songs but 2 have been written by her, and they're full of profound and special message.